Stephen. We're now going to move to the part of the session that Simon called discussion and argument. So please come back up here, both of you. Okay, well, let me ask you a question first, Stephen. So just give us a little description of your company and tell us what kind of businesses you're working with. You know, what do they see in Bitcoin?
Yeah, so BitPay is a payment processing company. So we make it easy for merchants and businesses to utilize the Bitcoin network. So first, as a payment processor, a merchant can come and sign up on our website, and in 5 minutes they can be ready to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment. And then we can settle in other currencies. The merchant doesn't have to accept Bitcoin themselves. We can sell the Bitcoins and turn them back into dollars and deposit that in their bank account the next day.
Okay. And what types of companies or businesses find that useful?
A lot of what you would typically find that nerds are interested in. So you have hosting companies, companies that sell computer equipment, electronic equipment, and a lot of companies that sell internationally, because with Bitcoin, you can take an international payment with no risk of payment fraud. Mm-hmm. And that's really significant. A lot of people don't realize that there are many countries on Earth that you can't accept a credit card payment. And those economies are practically isolated from, you know, the e-commerce that we enjoy today.
Okay, okay. Now Simon, so we have some companies are finding utility in Bitcoin. Simon's investors who are in people in Silicon Valley are investing in other companies. They kind of think this is a good idea. But as you said, there are governments and established banks that are probably going to be hostile. How does this get sorted out? What's the pitch that Stephen needs to make to?
Well, the pitch I made to Stephen was that he should get out ahead of this, get to Washington, persuade people that this can be a very important industry for the United States. That we export a lot of money. We export payment services, as I said, in this somewhat primitive form. We should be building an industry, a reputable, well-run industry around this kind of payment technology. And I would stress to the point about countries where you can't pay with a credit card. For many of those countries, if this technology works and this allows them to connect at low transaction costs to the world economy, that's a huge opportunity. And that's a very big contribution the United States can make if we are saying, yes, this is a system that we value, that we support politically, that we understand and are not threatened by. Well, they'll be threatened by it, but we can live with that level of threat. But we feel that it fits within our existing system of governance, and we're comfortable with that. That's a very big breakthrough for a lot of extremely poor people who can't otherwise connect to the world economy.
Yeah, and I should add to that we charge no fee. Even though we provide this service to connect to the Bitcoin network, there is no per transaction fee. We charge, based on a SaaS model, we charge a company a fixed amount every month, and they can process as many transactions as they want.
Okay, okay. Now, a lot of people heard about Bitcoin for the first time last week, I think, when the FBI seized a hidden website called Silk Road,
right.
Where Bitcoins were being traded for illicit substances. That's probably Bitcoin's kind of biggest media moment so far, but you know, does that reflect that there is something about Bitcoin that enables that type of activity, or is this something that you're going to grow out of?
Well, they needed a lot of technology to enable that kind of activity. First of all, they needed the internet, and they also needed Tor to hide the website, and so it wasn't just Bitcoin. But I actually think what it shows is that just because you're using Bitcoin doesn't mean you can evade law enforcement, right? They caught the guy, so. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I mean, let me add to that. Yeah, I think when you talk about regulations, like we were talking earlier, I think you have to focus on how people use the technology.
Right.
Because ultimately, governments regulate people. And so even if the technology allowed completely anonymous payments, you could make requirements on companies and individuals that for certain kinds of transactions, they have to keep proper records. So that if there's an issue, somebody could come to them with a subpoena and get those records. Maybe there are other kinds of transactions that you actually want to actively report to the government. So.
Okay.
So we have exactly these kinds of rules around standard banking, and unfortunately they've been broken by people who run very large corporations, international banks. HSBC and Standard Chartered have both conceded that they, in the past, have broken these rules. And I think that the key for the legitimacy of any system is to establish that the people who are using the system are, in fact, operating within the acceptable bounds of legality. Or you want to go somewhere else in the world, but that's not a very big place in the world in terms of the kind of potential we have for reducing transaction costs.
Okay. And as this competition between Bitcoin and the established way of doing things increases, are there things that we could do to the dollar or the existing payment system that, maybe the existing payment system could be reformed in a way that borrows from Bitcoin? Is that something that we might see happen?
I don't know. I mean, I've thought a lot about what role central banks might play if you make the assumption that Bitcoin became very popular and widely used. I mean, I think there are a lot of possibilities. It's a big topic, and there's a lot to think about there. I think that maybe if it became a substantial form of payment, that maybe a central bank might use it as a policy tool. They might be active in the Bitcoin markets when they set policy.
But what about you made the case that the dollar is pretty much a virtual currency already. I mean, Simon, do you think that the existing payments processors might be forced to innovate a little bit here?
Yes, absolutely. Look, it's not just about innovation, it's about the fact that they operate, we've allowed some oligopolies to operate. There are, if you take debit card fees, for example, those are set by the Federal Reserve. And there was a big fight recently between the big banks on the one side and the big retailers on the other side about what level those fees should be set at, with the Federal Reserve reaching some sort of compromise that didn't really please either side. So I think that it's not just innovation, there's a lot of potential to drive down costs to the consumer because frankly, they take advantage of protections and barriers to entry put in place by government regulation. So if Bitcoin becomes credible, widely used, trusted, and sufficiently legitimate, they will have to bring down the costs of processing payments in the non-Bitcoin part of the economy.
Okay.
Or they could use Bitcoin to reduce this.
They'll do both.
Right. That brings us to time. I encourage everyone to seek out these two gentlemen after the day ends and apply them with questions and learn more about this topic. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.